Hi everyone, welcome to the Ordinary Dads podcast, or as I like to call it, TODCAST. Today's episode was developed out of the realization that every dad is first and foremost a son. Think about it. Yes, I know I'm kind of like stating the obvious, but it's my hope that by the end of the episode, you'll begin to appreciate this truth that because many fellow dads that I've interacted with have realized that to be a very good father to your children, you first have to also reflect on your relationship with your own father as well. So today we have Ryan Kong, a fellow dad who's also part of The Ordinary Dad. And the reason why I've invited him is because just last year, Ryan found himself in a very unique situation. Ryan was not just a caregiver to his kids, but to his own dad as well, who was at that time battling cancer. So seeing his courage, his perseverance, and his love for his family just made me go like, wow, people have to really listen to his story and hear what he has to say, how he went through all those difficult times. But just a quick note, in telling Uncle Edward and Ryan's story, there will be faith and Christian elements being discussed. And while The Ordinary Dad is not a faith-based group, we thought to include these details because it's just such a huge part of their stories. So I hope this recording blesses you and helps you to rekindle, reconcile, and also rethink your relationships with your own father. And if you are going through hardships yourself, hopefully it gives you some strength. Hi, Ryan and Uncle Edward. Thank you for coming to the podcast.
Hi.
Awesome. Okay, so I'd like to do something unique today, okay? Why don't we get the both of you to introduce each other? Tell us a bit about each other so our listeners will know who you are.
Yeah, so Edward is my dad. This year, he is 73 years old. One thing about him, he loves playing chess. He taught me how to play chess since I was 5 years old. In fact, he's pretty good at it. He used to represent the airline
Wow.
chess for Singapore.
Wow.
I was born in 1986, so a little bit how old he is. Ryan is married with one wife and three daughters, right? Age 3, 5, and 7.
Before we talk about Uncle Edward's battle with cancer, my hope is that we can also encourage others who might be going through similar situations. So let's first get Ryan to share a little bit about your journey being a stay-home dad.
Yeah, so this journey started in 2021. I guess how it even started was quite interesting. Quite atypical from how I guess many others would have different experiences. Yeah, and but in my case, it was really something that was what I'll call a prompting. Yeah. So my dad and I, and just to share upfront, because we'll cover a bit of our journeys, and part of it also includes faith elements. Yeah. So for my dad and I, we're both Christians, and we believe that God is a relational one. Yeah. So it was just one night. This was in August 2021. When I was putting my eldest daughter to bed. And that's when I received a very strong prompting, because I believe back then it's from God, because it's not something that comes naturally to me. The strong prompting was for me to leave my job, to stop work. Yeah, and it was the kind of tone whereby you would, let's say if I tell my daughter, okay, stop, like basically a bit like a warning. Yeah, and accompanying that was also a mental picture that I received of an impending car accident.
Wow.
Yeah. So in some sense, it was like, wow, okay, what's going on? So I was asking God, wow, what? I just leave? I just stop? Okay, then what, right? And I guess the reply was more, get out of the boat first. Yeah. So this picture of the car accident, the following day, I had a call with my dad to share with him. I said, hey, I think God is prompting me to stop work. I'm not very sure whether I should do so, considering it doesn't sound very rational. Some context. At that point, I had two daughters at that point, and they were age 4 and 2. But my wife and I had just confirmed that we're expecting our third child 1 week before this prompting came. Yeah, and at that point, my wife was also a full-time mom already. But when I shared it with my dad, because I see him as a man of wisdom, and also one he's not a hasty person. both of us are fairly cautious to begin with. Yeah, but at the same time, because he too hears from God, he too has his own journey. Yeah, so when I received that word, shared it with him, he said that, just obey the prompting.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was the day after, and the following day, I quickly wrote my letter and I submitted it. Yeah. Over the span of that month, when I was serving my notice period, things just started to develop to kind of give me an indication that, okay, maybe I was sharing things right. For one, on the day that I tendered my resignation, the same day, my wife's aunt passed on.
Oh.
Yeah. So within that first week of me resigning, we were having to deal with a funeral already. And just subsequently that month, there were a number of health issues that came about related to our elderly relatives. So I was thinking, okay, perhaps this season is really one whereby I'm being led to focus on matters relating to life and death, and possibly caregiving beyond just my immediate family. Yeah. So where my dad comes in is, firstly, he's the only person that I shared this news, this mental picture about a car accident with. 2 weeks after my last day of work, what happened was I received a call from my dad. He said that his car had broken down. This was on a Friday. And so he asked me to come and basically rescue him, right, to locate him. So we got the car towed, and the car was repaired the following day, Saturday. Then 2 days later, I got a call from him again. I remember this very vividly. It was 2:55 p.m. in the afternoon. What happened was he called again. He said that he had met with a car accident 2 days after we repaired the car. And this was a very major one. He had spun and crashed into the central divider. Yeah. So when he sent the photo of what was left of the car in the family chat, my heart literally dropped to the floor, because minimally I was thinking it has to be a 80 km/h crash. The whole bonnet had caved in. Yeah, and all the airbags were out. So I immediately asked him, "Dad, are you okay? Is the ambulance coming? How are you?" And I guess when I rushed down, my heart was racing, and in my mind I was thinking, wow, car accident. And it really happened to the one person I shared it with. Yeah. But really I can only say it's a miracle. When the ambulance came and checked him, the ambulance didn't bring him back to the hospital. He was free to go. So wow, that was really amazing.
Wow.
But I guess what happened after that was we did still get him checked up anyway, because he was having some back pains, and I guess we wanted to make sure there's no whiplash or things and complications.
Yeah.
So to summarize it, what then ensued was, because he went for checks, there were a number of health issues that were brought to the surface.
Because of that check.
Because of the check. So not so much related to the car accident.
Yeah.
But because when you go for scans and things like that, so he picked up a heart issue, he picked up among other issues. But I think a more major one that subsequently developed was related to his liver. Yeah, and that's when I think further down we can go into this story. But 2 years after that, he developed bile duct liver cancer, basically.
I want to ask Uncle Edward, actually, because it's so sweet and nice that Ryan went to you to share that he was going to quit his job and, stay at home and take care of his family. I can imagine not every father would be the most pleased. We know of certain stay-home dads who have shared it with their own parents, and then their parents are like, what? I raised you up, and now you're not going to work, you're not going to take care of your kids, From your perspective, why did you say yes? Why did you say that? You know what, go ahead.
No, I thought if this is what God wants him to do at this point of his life, it will be best for him. As a believer, we believe that we have God, as Ryan said, who is not only relational, but he cares for us. I also just want to add on to what Ryan says about Christians receiving prompting from God. God sometimes tells us what is going to happen to us in the future. it can be good things. It can be so-called bad things.
Mm.
In a sense, it is to prepare us. All right. For me, I have been receiving prompting from God time and again. It started in 2013, about 12 years ago. And it's very interesting because this prompting was that he wants me to teach something, I don't know what is it, in Africa, right? He wants me to teach something to who? I also don't know, at that time. And I was actually lying in hospital bed at the time from sleep disc. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. So I was lying down for 2 weeks, immobile in the hospital. So what can you do as a believer except to try to listen to God and ask questions like, why is all this happening to me? So at that time, God says, you will be okay. Right? Don't worry, you'll be okay. Not only that, you'll be okay. I'm going to send you to Africa, to teach the people there. So I says, quite strange. I was talking to God in Hokkien, I say, 上帝有影无啦，你應該看我這道呢，到底這道啊，都袂緊動，你叫我去非洲啊，你遠啊，so many 10 hours flight, not 10 hours flight. So I say, 有影無啦。In other words, like telling God, are you joking?
Yeah.
But God says, no, don't worry, you'll be well. I will prolong your life. Not only will you be well, will prolong your life. And subsequently, 1 year later, I asked him this question, how long will you prolong my life? And he said, it will be more than 15 years.
Wow.
So this becomes relevant later on when I share about cancer. In August, I was breathless. I couldn't walk even 30 steps without feeling breathless. So my colleague says, you probably had some heart issues. Can I recommend you my cardiologist? So I went to see him. They ordered me straight away. The order was on a Friday. So did a series of checks, including stress, ECG. And they said, nothing wrong with you. Then as I was about to check out, I suddenly received back this prompting again that my son, I will prolong your life. I will prolong your life. Then I said, there must be something in what I heard. So I said, nurse, can you call the doctor? I want to speak to the doctor. So she called the doctor and I asked the doctor, can you walk me to do a more thorough check? Which is what he did. Right? And they found something. And he said, okay, we need to do further checks and do what they call angiogram. Angiogram is to pass a camera through the vein, through the artery to scan the heart. And if they find any blockages, they'll fix the problem then and there. They discovered a blockage, a major blockage in the artery, the main artery of the left chamber. It was 7 cm block, 80%.
Wow.
Then the cardiologist says, Mr. Kong, it's a good thing we discovered this. Because if it has not been discovered, then you'll most likely have a heart attack, a major heart attack, and you wouldn't survive it. So when I heard that, it sort of had goose pimples. Because what God said is, quite came true to me, that, April 2014, I asked God again. I woke up in the middle of the night about 4 a.m. because it was troubling me. You want to prolong my life? How long? I want to know how long. As I said just now, God says, I will lengthen your life for at least 15 years. And I want you to go to Africa to teach, and I will tell you what to teach.
So Ryan, while your dad was going through all this, what was going through your mind?
So I guess that period, you may infer, it's actually quite a stressful time for our family. I recall 2013 and 2014, there's a lot of uncertainty. So I guess at that point, I was also taking on the responsibility of not only caring for my own family, but also for my parents. So yes, it was a bit of a stressful period. But even as my dad has shared all this in the same vein, right? Because I know that he walks with the Lord, and he's someone who is quite. He's not a rash person, right? So I recognize that whenever he receives such promptings and he has conversations with God, there's something real to him. Yeah, and hence, for me, growing up in this context, I'm also very, attuned to the fact that, okay, if God is leading him in this way, he'll be okay. Yeah. But again, the reality, as with also to make it clear, life is definitely not smooth sailing or bed of roses. Yes, while we have this assurance, and sometimes this assurance is not something that can be proven or, as with many issues that's faith related, sometimes you just have to take that step. And as you walk through it, then you gain strength or you receive peace. Yeah. But yeah, when he eventually went to Africa, of course, everyone was like, wow. Firstly, I know my dad, this is not something that he would raise up his hand to, okay, God, I'm going to Africa for you. Right? Yeah. If anything, he's probably like, yeah, boy. but I guess this is a very interesting, reveals a very interesting aspect of God's heart for my dad. Right? First, to give him a seemingly impossible situation, seemingly ridiculous situation, but to also then show that, hey, I'm not joking. Yes, with a sense of humor, of course, but yeah, I will follow through on my promises to you. And I think that's what I was encouraged by. Yeah.
Wow. Now, I understand the story doesn't stop there. You didn't just go to Africa, come back, and then everything is smooth sailing. And then Ryan, you became a stay-home dad. What happened next?
Yeah, so let me go back to where I left off. So that the car accident happened, right?
Yes.
And then my father went for a series of checks. Yeah. If I were to just summarize since 2021, what has been going on. Yeah, basically, over that period, my father had a follow-up heart procedure. Yeah. He also had to go through, among other things, there was a 6-week period where he tore meniscus in his right knee. So there was 6 weeks of me and my brother basically helping with his mobility. Yeah, and I recall that this was just in the lead up towards my third child being born. Yeah, so at that point we were expecting, right? So basically in week 39 of my wife's pregnancy, my whole family came down with COVID. Yeah, so that was also extremely nerve-wracking, and I guess maybe the stress of it all took its toll. In 1 month after that, I was down with shingles. Yeah. So a lot of things were actually happening concurrently, right? So in the case of my dad, March 2022. So what happened was the doctors found an abnormal nodule, and they had to do a biopsy. Yeah. So at the same point of doing the biopsy, they discovered, okay, it's a malignant nodule, meaning cancerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was just one nodule then. So they burnt it off. Yeah, ablation, the medical term's ablation, and they burnt it off. So this was March 2022, around the same period where my youngest one was born. So you can imagine the full-on,
wow.
night feeds and stuff like that, right? The reality is it's not easy to have that, both the physical exertions in terms that are required of caregiving, both for 3 young children, including a newborn, as well as at that point my dad. Yeah. So if I fast forward very quickly, 1 year in 2023, in June, suddenly in the scan, it was picked up that his liver had basically an explosion of tumors that was affecting his liver. Yeah, and the prognosis was rather grim. Yeah, at that point, it was quite clear that the cancer had became more aggressive. Yeah, and it was going to be a real risk of liver failure. Yeah, so there were 2 options presented to us. One was to basically let it be, just go for chemo. The lifespan would just be 6 months to a year, thereabouts on average. Now, so
wow.
Of course, when I heard that kind of news, it just I guess your world really crashes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But then there was another alternative treatment which involved a surgery. And And in this surgery, he had to remove 70% of his liver, which means there was no guarantee, that if he removed 70% of his liver, that he would wake up from that procedure, right? Yeah. So as in the doctor's word, it's a high risk, high reward endeavor. In fact, when we were seeing the oncologist, this was not even an option because it is not recommended, right? They won't recommend something so drastic. So well, this time, in 2023, well, I think everything was super intense. Yeah, and during that period, my dad also, so just to share this story, which I guess he can elaborate. And so literally, we were still trying to decide what to do, right? It's a rock and a hard place kind of decision. Yeah, so we were all seated in the doctor's office, me, my wife, and him, and I'll let him carry on the story.
Yeah. The doctor asked, do you want to go for surgery, right? Given that the chances of your liver growing is almost zero. Really cannot answer. You answer yes or no. So, Hokkien say bo hua also. No. At that moment, I remembered that actually I have got, I can ask. So I silently asked God, and said, what shall I tell the doctor? Then God says, very interesting, he says, I'm your creator. I'm the one who made your liver. Your liver will grow. So straight away, I told the doctor, I say, my liver surgeon, I say, yeah, I'll go for the operation because I just hear from God that my liver will grow. Then the doctor said, can you leave my consultation room? So I left my consultation outside.
No, I guess what he said was, Mr. Kong, can you excuse us for a while? Because he
Why?
to speak to me and my wife privately to check on my father's mental health and emotional state, as well as to also get a better understanding of the family's, I guess, needs, and including the finances and things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But long and short of it, he literally received a download in the doctor's room and said it as it is. I was also taken aback at that point. Yeah.
And I'm also reminded that up to this point, God had also told you prior that I'm going to prolong your life. Yeah, you're going to live for 15 years.
Yeah, you see, because as I said, God says I'm going to lengthen your life by at least 15 years. So 2023 was only 10 years.
Yeah.
So again, I would say in Hokkien, you already told me at least 15 years. Now the doctor says I only have about 6 months to 1 year. That is only 10 years. So, yeah. So it's quite interesting when I look back and that, the conversation with God and what's actually happening to me.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of trust. Do you really trust in the words of God?
Exactly. Because, to some people, it would say that, okay, sure, God told me that I'm going to live for another 15 years. But the reality of what I'm seeing is that I'm having more conditions now. So how did you get that faith?
At that point already, I've already gone through a few angioplasty, at least 4 angioplasty. And my heart is already, I already got 5 stents at that point and 7 balloons. That means my heart is blocked in 12 places already. And I cannot go for open chest surgery, to remove the liver. I want to be very realistic. Even as a believer, you also have your struggles.
Right. So you did struggle. You did go like, what's happening?
Yeah. So all this. So I went back. I asked the surgeon, I said, can you do keyhole? Right. That was after we waited. He said, needs 1 month or 4 weeks for the liver to grow 30% at least. So after 5 days, I guess the liver didn't grow at all, only 0%.
Wow. So you did the surgery.
That's also another test of faith. Really, neck didn't grow at all. No. That means what the doctors in NCC said is true. The oncologist said is true. Unlikely that liver will grow. So everybody start to pray. When you panic, you pray. Family pray, church members pray. Everybody start praying. Those who are concerned. And after 3 more weeks, the liver grew 42%.
Wow.
More than what is needed. So we went through the operation and keyhole operation and had the right section of the liver removed. So now I'm surviving on 50% because the
Wow.
30% has grown
Wow.
another 30%. So another 20%. So now it's about 50%. Sufficient that.
Okay. Ryan, I'm a control freak. I would want to make sure that things are within my control. Even though it fails, I know that it's because of something I did. I can imagine for you as a son, seeing your father go through all this, and at the same time still also caring for your kids as a stay-home dad. There was definitely a loss of control. What would you say to someone like me? I'm also saying this, keeping in mind that there are a lot of locals, young Singaporeans like us, who have grown up being taught that we need to have all the control in the world. We need to have 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan. How did you deal with it, and what advice do you have?
I think firstly, it is to recognize that as much as we want to have that locus of control, there's so many things in life that we cannot control. And sometimes what we do have is kind of like a semblance of control, right? But I'm not saying this in a matter of like, leave everything up to God, up to fate. No, I think that the point is, and as my dad is showing, sometimes it's a partnership, right? Sometimes you do your part, you do your best, but you also leave room for, I guess, unexpected things to happen, impossible things to happen. Well, if you are trying to get from point A to point B, right? Yes, you can have do your planning, you draw a map, you have your GPS with you. Sometimes the GPS says turn left instead of turn right, right? Sometimes you turn left and then there's a dead end. Sometimes you need to make a detour. And I guess that's kind of how life is. That even though I am holding on tightly to whatever vehicle I'm driving, I cannot determine whether there's a dead end ahead or not. I cannot determine whether sometimes I have to get out of the car and walk. Yeah. Right. So I guess when you go into the topic of parenting, and I guess listeners will know very well, especially those who are parenting young children. Yeah. Your life basically goes out of control the moment the baby comes, right? Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes all you wish for is like, oh, I wish I had a better handle over things and some kind of certainty over how things will be. I didn't have the big picture. God had the big picture, and He kind of saw that I'll be entering a season of my life whereby caregiving would become my primary job, right? And then if I were to basically focus on what's important and just go with it, yeah. And I guess leave the anxieties of all the other stuff behind. Just focus on what's the task at hand. Yeah. Hence, I guess ultimately, if you think about it, let's say you are a dad, you want to care for your family. Traditionally, yes, you go out to work, you get a job, you bring home the bacon, you provide financially, correct? But more often than not, as we are aware, work, I guess your career can take up a lot of your time and energy, and there may not be much of what you have left at the end of the day, right? To spend time with your kids, what more your parents, right, who probably live separately from you. Yeah, but in this season, what I gave was instead of money, I gave my time, my energy, yeah, and basically my presence. Yeah, and recognizing that sometimes that is actually the most precious commodity, right? You cannot earn time. Once time is gone, that's it, right? So I guess that shaped my perspective.
I mean, what really amazed me is that when you heard that prompting to stop work, that really created a lot of space for you to care for your children. But not just that, because of whatever that Uncle Edward has had to go through, it gave you the space to also be there for him, to care for his needs, all the way up to now. Yeah, and I think that's amazing. For our listeners who may not be the most familiar, there were a lot of talks about prompting, hearing the voice of God. Can you all describe that a little bit? How is that like for you all? Do you literally hear an audible sound? Is it a prompting in your heart? How would you best explain
I
it?
guess it's firstly, what's more important, I believe, is the relationship first. So as my dad has explained, he has a relationship with God in the same way he said throughout this podcast, like father and son, right?
Yeah.
So
You can even speak in Hokkien to God.
Yeah. and I realized that God calls him son, right? You realize he mentioned it. Yeah. And in the same way, he's my dad, right? When he speaks to me, yeah, I recognize his voice, right? I recognize his heart. Yeah, so it's not so much the how, right? Sometimes, say, my dad can write a note for me, right? Or sometimes he can give me a phone call, he can drop me a text, right? So I don't think the emphasis is so much like, oh, is it a voice or is it an impression? I think what's more important is, do you know the person behind the communication?
It was a very significant prompting which I give Ryan.
Yeah.
Right. It says, Amy is a good girl. You must pursue after her. Maybe she did.
Yeah, my dad keeps reminding me, but nothing supernatural about that at all.
I do have friends who have gone through one hardship after the other, whether is it retrenchment, sickness, something bad happening to his loved one or her loved one, one thing after the other. And it almost sounds like something that both of you have gone through. But your reaction wasn't, wow, God, if you love me so much, like, where are you? How come you keep letting this happen to me? Did you all have that kind of response? How do you deal with it? And what advice, I guess, would you give to someone who is facing something similar?
So I think the first thing that I had to kind of reconcile within myself was acknowledging that, okay, life, it's not a bed of roses, right? Yeah, that whatever happens in the here and now, right, how do I respond to it also shapes my perspective towards how I will live on in the long run, right? So in this case, while one response could be anger or disappointment or grief, right, towards God sometimes or towards the circumstance, and I think God can take that, right? You just have a very honest lament or very honest, like, just say, hey, God, why like that?
And that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. In the same way that sometimes when parents and child have arguments, right? So we may say something out of, in our frustration, we may not mean it, we hurt one another. But I think as a father, we can take it, right? Because we know that ultimately the child is processing, the child is also expressing, right? And that's fine, because that doesn't change whatever the child says to me, doesn't change my love for my child. Yeah, sometimes what she does is to withhold certain things for our own good. In the same way, I can't give my daughters candy every day, right? Even though they may lament, oh, why everyone else has candy, why I don't have candy? Or how come mine is so small? Things like that. Yeah. And sometimes, not that God purposely gives you sickness. I think that that's not so much the case. But sometimes he recognizes that, and he's more interested in the transformation of your heart. That sometimes perhaps he allows you to go through, be it a sickness or be it a very difficult experience, but out of that, you learn patience, you learn what it means to be joyful amidst difficult times. You learn the meaning of hope. Right?
I used to teach, right, in Africa and now in Sri Lanka. And one of the things I mentioned is life purpose. I ask my audience to consider very carefully, what is your life purpose, right? What really makes your life count? So I also question myself this question. So to me, I stated my life purpose as trying to impact people positively, as many people as I can. What are you living for? Wow. Are you just living for possession, living for pleasure, or living for riches which you cannot take away? So this, or are you living for eternal values? Right? Yeah.
Wow. We're going to end very soon, but I want to just have a quick update about. So, Uncle Edward, how are you right now? The story hasn't ended.
Yeah, as I said, faith and life is a journey. We still have to go through. There will still be rough edges to be smoothed. Quite recently, they discovered a nodule in my lung. Okay, and I went through a bout of bronchitis or so, and a scan, the regular scan suddenly showed a lot of shadows in my lung. So the fear is that there could be a relapse, the progression of bile duct cancer to the lungs. I had to go for a CT. I had to go for what do you call biopsy. They wanted me to go for a biopsy. So they wheeled me into the operating theater, and I was all wired up ready for the biopsy. Then the radiologist came in and said, Mr. Kong, the biopsy is aborted. So I said, why? He said, oh, the scars just disappeared.
Wow.
So as I said, the faith is an up and down journey. so I really, you ask me.
How do you explain that? Wow.
I really, as I say, we live from day to day, week to week, month to month, and year to year, and continue to trust God.
Yeah, but the reality, it is an emotional roller coaster because this was last November. But at that point, I recall that when he had to go for biopsy for lung, my heart sank again. It's like, oh, when is this going to end? You know?
Again,
here we go again. Yeah, but well, of course, I guess, well, maybe medically you can say that infection cleared up, or maybe it was a miracle. We never know for sure, but I guess it can be both. Yeah, what I do know is that it's now 2025 and my dad is still alive, and that to me is already a living miracle. And we continue to trust that for how many more years, that of course he in his mind is 15 years and beyond, but I think it's not so much the length that's important. As he said, how do you live it? What do you live for? That is really the most important.
And Ryan, what would you like to say to your father?
To my father?
Yes.
Firstly, I'm very, very proud of him. Having gone through all that he has gone through, it's really not easy to still have that still be able to hold on to his faith. Yeah, I think when the cancer hit him, I recall the toughest period was post-surgery. He had to go for chemotherapy as well, 8 cycles, and that's when your body really gets knocked out. Yeah, and I think if I may put it, the true test of your faith is when you are just physically very tired, when you don't have an appetite, where mentally, emotionally you're stressed. The way he lived his life is still one full of meaning and purpose and still caring for others. He could have gone for a holiday. And to me, that's also one of the greatest takeaways that I get from my dad, right? How he's lived his life. It's purposeful. Yes, it may not always make sense. Yeah, but ultimately, he's always very other-centric. He's always living for a greater calling beyond himself. And that inspires me.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories. Thank you, Uncle Edward. Thank you, Ryan. And to those who are tuning in, it has been such a privilege to have you with us. Do feel free to share this with your friends or other fathers you think might find this sharing useful. Here at The Ordinary Dad, we believe in the power of stories, and this podcast is just one of the different ways we're hoping to encourage other dads on their individual journeys as parents. Till then, while parenting is anything but ordinary, the love, care, and commitment of ordinary dads does wonders to this sometimes mundane and perplexing parenting journey. You're not alone, ordinary dads. See you soon.